Great, thanks Alexander, and thanks everyone for coming along. I think very shortly after IMARC last year, the coordinators of the event got back in touch and said, we've been polling a whole lot of people that attended in 2014 and we've been asking them what they'd like to hear about. And one of the big things they want to hear about is how can people solve this disconnect between productivity and safety? And I said, yes, that sounds right, that sounds like what everyone's trying to achieve. And I said, we'd really like you to come back and share how they should do that. And I said, well, that may be a little bit more of a tricky thing for us to deal with. This was in about, this would have been 6 to 8 months ago. So, decided to come back and share what I knew and what we've been doing at Newcrest. Since then, Newcrest has been doing a lot of soul searching and we've had a fairly tough 9 months. So we've had 4 fatalities in 9 months, 2 in Australia and 2 in Papua New Guinea. And to be a bit more clear about what that means, instead of saying 4 fatalities, that means that Maxwell, Piwas, Lee and Josh all lost their lives and their families lost their dads. And that's been pretty tough for us as an organisation. One of the things that we've been really wrestling down to the ground is this idea of productivity and safety. Whether what we're doing as leaders is inadvertently getting that balance not quite right for our frontline workforce. So we've done quite a bit of work and I want to share some results of that work today. But to give a bit of a spoiler, to jump right to the end of what we think you can do, what we think we can do to bring productivity and safety together and to help our leaders understand what they need to do to drive both, the answer is behaviours. And the answer is 2 sets of behaviours. At the end of the day, it's about our frontline workforce's behaviours. They're the ones that make their choices each and every day about more safe and less safe behaviours. But what influences them the most, and one of the key things that motivates them, is their leaders' behaviours. So it's about leaders' behaviours and how that flows down to the workforce. So let's first of all talk about behaviours and why behaviours are important and how you might go about changing behaviours, and then we'll backtrack about how that's all linked together with safety and productivity. This is a story from going on 10 years ago now at a high school called Ashley Hall. It's a girls' school, all-girls school in the US in South Carolina, from preschool right up to what we would call year 12. So primary school to high school, 600 odd students, reasonable size, fairly prestigious, 100-year-old all-girls school. They were facing a problem, and it's probably not a problem that only they have faced. Their girls, as they progressed through the different year levels, were learning about a whole lot of different things, and some of the things they were learning about was life skills. I've got 2 daughters, but my daughters, I've got a long time to have to face some of these issues. My daughters are 1 and 3. But apparently in about middle school, girls need to start to learn about how to put on lipstick. They also need to start to learn about how to kiss, but that's something I don't even want to think about just for the time being. They need to learn how to put on lipstick, and apparently one of the ways you learn to do that is you put the lipstick on and then you kiss a mirror, and then you can see the quality. You can get a bit of instant feedback about how well you've put your lipstick on. You can also learn a little bit about what it's like to kiss yourself and therefore get some feedback for that part of the learning experience as well. The other thing I've learned about lipstick through people telling me is it's really hard to clean off. And in fact, if you think about it, the whole purpose of lipstick is that it's designed to stay on, even on a wet surface. So, lipstick, really difficult to clean off, extremely difficult to clean off a mirror, and I've got a group of girls in the middle school who have decided that this is how they're going to learn. So every single day, after lunch, one particular bathroom mirror is covered in lipstick marks, like you see on the screen. They've got a behavioural problem that they need to change. They've tried a few things, but nothing's working. So let's just step out for a second and think, how would we solve this in the mining industry if we had a behavioural problem? We'd probably pull out our old hierarchy of controls. So we'd start at the top, elimination. All right, well, maybe we can get rid of lipstick. Okay, they tried that. Girls weren't actually allowed to bring lipstick to school anyway. So we would try to eliminate lipstick. The other thing we could do is try to eliminate mirrors. That's possible. I don't know how that's going to go down in all girls school, and there's probably some hygiene requirement that says you really should have mirrors in a bathroom. We'd probably try and eliminate, what have we got next? Substitution. So we could take away the mirrors. We could put in, like, in some public toilets, they have just a really shiny stainless steel thing that you're able to reflect in. We could try that. Probably going to have the same issue with general hygiene, and also probably not going to go down too well with the middle and high school girls not being able to look in the mirror in the bathroom. Elimination, substitution, engineering. Now we're starting to hit, mining sweet spot. We could put like a yellow mesh grill over the mirror, so we could separation, keep the lips and the mirror separate. Maybe we could put a big, some bollards or something around the outside, make it more difficult to physically keep people away from the mirror. what other engineering controls have we got? We got mixed engineering and administration on the hierarchies. We put some cameras, and now we're really in mining's hotspot, which is we could catch the people that are doing the wrong thing and put them on a performance management plan and discipline them. That will surely solve the behaviour. Or we could try administration, training, and a sign. A sign will probably fix it. That's how we'd go about it. What do all those things do? They all work. They don't work on people not wanting to do the behaviour. They work on people having to not do the behaviour. So they're forcing people not to be able to do it, even though they still want to do it. The school had also tried a lot of these things, right? So they'd put up a sign, they'd banned lipstick, they talked about it in class. Nothing was working because there was still a behaviour that the girls wanted to do. They couldn't find a way to engineer it out. So school management had been working hard on it, and finally the poor old janitor, who had to come in there every day after lunch and clean all this lipstick off the mirror, he'd had enough. He said, they're not going to sort it out, I'm going to sort it out. I'm just going to get these girls together and I'm going to tell them how kind of difficult it is for me every day. So he organised the teachers to pull in the heads of all the forms, so the heads of all the classes that use this particular bathroom, the 2 school captains, and they also grabbed a couple of people that they felt were like the opinion leaders in the class, the ones that all the other girls listened to and the ones they actually thought were probably leading this whole lipstick mirror thing. So he gets them all together in the bathroom after lunch on a Friday. The mirror's covered in lipstick, and he says, look, girls, I understand what you're doing. I know that you want to get better at putting the lipstick on, but I just want to let you know how much work it is for me and how much effort I have to go to every day to clean this mirror, and I'd really appreciate it like if you could stop kissing the mirror and making my life harder. That'd be great. Oh, and just before you go, just to really show you how difficult it is, I just want to demonstrate how hard it is for me to clean it off. So he went over to his trolley, grabs out a big long scrubbing brush, turns around to the nearest toilet, jams that scrubbing brush in the toilet, sloshes it around in the water, slops it on the mirror, and job done. From that day forth, no problems with lipstick on the mirror. So what's that story about? Well, it's about behavioural change. It's about thinking that changing behaviour might be really, really hard, and usually it is, but if you're not attacking the things that are motivating the behaviour, you're not trying to stop people from wanting to do it and giving them a choice, but you're just trying to physically stop them and prevent them, it's not going to work, and you've got to find the things that are going to motivate. So let's jump back a step before we get to behaviour and talk about safety and productivity. So the two seem to naturally, we have this natural assumption that they're in tension. And as outputs, they probably are. So I thought I would come here today and I thought I'd get a whole lot of information, a whole lot of graphs, a whole lot of case studies where they're not in tension, where people have delivered safety and productivity. So I went and grabbed some data for Australia and plotted it out, and unfortunately it didn't work out how I thought. So two lines you're seeing here. Orange is labour productivity in the Australian mining industry over 15 years. The grey is a proxy for safety, so it's fatalities. So if, when you worked hard at it, you delivered productivity improvement and safety improvement, then the orange line would be going up and the grey line would be going down. First few years of this graph, great, everything's going well. Productivity is improving, safety is getting better, fatalities are dropping. Then for the last 10 years, it hasn't quite worked out how we would expect or how we would want it to. The two haven't been working together. Thankfully, it's been in the right iteration. So what we wouldn't want to see is productivity improving and safety underperforming, but what we've seen is the opposite. We have been doing better on safety, although clearly, from the fatality trend, not as well as we would like, but we've also been going backwards on productivity. So, graphs aside, let me talk about what we've been doing. So if we think about safety and productivity, they're both outputs. You don't ask people to go do more safety or do more productivity. There's things that you ask them to do and ways you ask them to behave and the way the organisation runs, and out the back end of that you get either safety or productivity as a result. So our puzzle, and the industry's puzzle, but ours particularly over the last 9 months, is what's driving it? What's driving safety, and is that also driving productivity? So here's what we did. We unfortunately had fatality data to use, but we also had what we call significant potential incidents, SPIs. Those are the things where, but for one more critical control, or 1 more metre, or 5 more seconds, it would have been a fatality. So we pulled apart all that data to look for the underlying things that were driving our SPIs. And what we found was there was 2 mutually exclusive things, but that had quite a bit of overlap. The first one was critical controls were failing. So either the critical controls they didn't exist, they weren't in place, or they weren't healthy on the job on the day when the SPI occurred. And the other thing we found was that there was people choosing less safe behaviours. Clearly our question was then what's motivating them to choose those less safe behaviours, but that's what we were seeing. And there was an overlap. But what it told us was we had to work on both. Because a third of our SPIs were coming from no critical control failure. All the systems were fine, but people were choosing to do things that we would prefer they didn't. And at the other end, if we just worked on behaviours, we were still going to have 20% where our systems and our critical controls were letting us down. So our focus at the moment is a two-pronged approach to critical controls and individual behaviours. We've also been now we're conscious of that, we've been looking at our production outages on a weekly basis. We've been looking at what we call our SPBI, significant potential business interruptions, and we're finding the same thing. Sometimes it's behavioural, sometimes it's a critical control failure, oftentimes it's both. So we think that critical controls and individual behaviours are our two levers to pull to get the results that we want. Now, I don't want to talk about critical controls today, although I could for another hour if I had all the safety functional people in the room, because the industry's loving critical control management at the moment. Today I want to talk about individual behaviours, obviously, which brings us back to the story at the start. So, if we know the behaviours that we would like, if we want to improve our safety and improve our productivity, what are we really talking about here? Well, the aggregation of all our behaviours is called our culture in our business. And in particular at Newcrest, we talk about culture as being not just the behaviours, but in particular the behaviours people do voluntarily and habitually, and most specifically, the behaviours they do when there is no supervision around. So the behaviours we see when there's supervisors and management, that is not indicative of our true culture. It's what we get on Saturday night shift underground deep in the mine. When something changes or the going gets tough, that's our culture. And that's the culture that we're seeing reflected through in our SPIs of less safe behaviour choice. But it's a bit cyclical, right? So your culture is simply an assembly of all your behaviours, but it's also that culture that's so strong in driving the behaviours. So changing culture is very difficult, but if you can get to those people's behaviours at the exact time we want to, which is in the absence of supervision. Why else is culture important? Well, from a business point of view, as Drucker said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So if there's a good mining company up the road, we can go steal all their management plans and their systems and probably even their management approach. We can go plant all that into Newcrest and it probably won't make a lick of difference. But if we can get a culture that is strong, A, it lasts, and B, no one can take it off us. So it becomes a competitive advantage in safety and, of course, in productivity when we've got a strong culture. But how is that linked to safety outcomes? So if we look at some of the research and take here employee engagement as a proxy for culture. So Gallup had a look at it, and what they found, as shown here, is that between the top quartile of employee engagement and the bottom quartile is a 50% reduction in safety incidents. So a very strong correlation between engagement, and there's a proxy culture, and safety incidents. And of course, we're all pretty confident that engagement has a fairly good correlation to productivity as well. If you've got an engaged workforce, you're clearly going to get more output, no matter what kind of employee they are. So they went thought about, well, we've got our critical control piece covered. How do we influence the individual behaviours? This is the McDonald Associates 3 things. So what does a leader have on their tool belt to influence culture? They've got their own behaviours as leaders, they've got systems, and they've got symbols. But the one that trumps them all is leaders' behaviours. So that's where we chose to focus. What we also knew is from the Gallup data on employee engagement and also from a survey from the Minerals Council in 2004. So Minerals Council did a survey. What they did was they looked at safety performance and then they surveyed mines at people at all levels with a whole lot of questions. Tell us about your planning system and tell us about management, tell us about what leaders do, tell us about your incentive scheme, everything they could think of to try and find a correlation between some answers to those questions and safety performance. After all those questions, I didn't find any correlation whatsoever to safety performance except for one question where there was extremely strong correlation. And that question was, does your manager demonstrate that they care about your safety? And where employees answered yes, there was a strong safety performance. When employees answered no, there was an underperformance in safety. Let me just pull that question apart for a second. Does your manager demonstrate that he or she cares about your safety? So it's not do they demonstrate they care about safety, it's care about your safety. It's not do they care about your safety, it's do they demonstrate they care about your safety. and demonstration of care. So the good thing we've got is that there is a way that we can change culture. All our leaders need to do, it sounds simple, is demonstrate they care, particularly in crucial moments. So let me finish with one more story to get a bit more heavy about holding people to account and how these crucial moments can make or indeed break the culture of a pretty significant organisation. This is the Uss Carl Vinson, so it's a super carrier from the United States Navy. It's just come back from fighting ISIS and all that sort of stuff in the Gulf, stopped in at Perth on the way back, it's back at home base now. 6,000 people, 10,000 tonnes, got a 100 metre long runway. They land F-18 Hornets on this aircraft carrier at 150 miles an hour. They've got a hook, people probably know, a hook comes out the back, hooks on some wires, and they decelerate from 150 to 0 in 2 seconds. And what they tell me is the way you can know if you'll be a good Hornet fighter pilot to land on a carrier is put a postage stamp down the end of this aisle, like right down the end, a postage stamp on the ground. If I run full speed down the aisle and dive, if I can lick that postage stamp, I'm good to go to be a Hornet pilot. That's how difficult it is to catch those wires. So, $60 million aircraft coming in. Up in that big tower on the top is the chief of the ship. For a supercarrier, he's called the Admiral, because he's got a bit of a fleet of ships under his control. The most important thing on the ship is keeping the deck clean. So, when the fitters go out to do work on particular bits and pieces, in their toolbox, every tool's numbered and they know where everyone is. On this particular day, the fitter had finished their work, one spanner was missing. So, he decides to report it and tell everyone. What that means is an immediate stand down to all operations. So there's jets in the sky, they need to go land on another carrier, go find somewhere else to land. Everything is stood down, costing millions of dollars while they look for this spanner. So they do an emu bob. They get in a line and they walk across the deck, searching everywhere they can for this one spanner. First emu bob, they don't find it. They report up to the Admiral, no good. They do a second pass, still no good. He orders the whole ship stood down, everyone on deck, even if you're on your rest break, on deck, skeleton crew only. Walk a third and fourth emu bob looking for this spanner. Can't find it, nowhere to be seen. The Admiral decides, right, it's now been an hour and a half, everything's stood down, I'm happy the spanner's not there. Commence operations, but I want an all-staff briefing at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning on the deck. So, 7 o'clock tomorrow morning comes. All of the crew assemble on the deck. The Admiral stands up on his little lectern and says, can the fitter that lost the spanner yesterday please come up to the front of the stage? So the fitter reluctantly comes up to the side and the Admiral says, are you the fitter that lost and reported the spanner yesterday leading to the stand down of the entire ship while we search for that spanner? He says, yes sir, I am. And the Admiral says, well, I want to thank you for having the courage to report, even though you knew it would cost us a lot of time, because that is the exact behaviour that we want on this ship, to put safety before our operations. And that is the kind of crucial moment that we want our people to recognise and to capitalise on. That could have gone either one or two ways, and the Admiral, we ask our people to be like the Admiral chose to reward the behaviour that they wanted and therefore reinforce it. So what we found is that our leaders have in the palm of their hands enormous capability to actually create tension between safety and productivity. They can do that without even knowing, and they can do that quite passively. But they also have in their power very easily the ability to bring safety and productivity together and to improve our culture at the same time. And the way that we're asking our people to do that, and the way we think is going to lead to strong success for us in the future, is get them to demonstrate that they care about the safety of their people. Thank you.